we have the categories of operations audit. So operational audit falls into three categories. No, first is what we have the functional audit. The second one is what we have here the organizational audit, and the third one is the special assignment. When we say functional audit, in here we are doing audit on certain functions. Now, functions are a means of categorizing the activities of a business, such as the billing function or the production function. Functions may be categorized and subdivided further in many ways. For example, the accounting function may be subdivided into cash disbursement, okay? Yung paglabas ng pera, yung cash receipts, pagpasok ng pera, and payroll disbursement function, yung pagbayad ng sahod ng mga tao. The payroll function may be subdivided further into timekeeping, hiring, okay, and payroll disbursement functions also. Now, a functional audit can also deal with one or more functions in an organization, concerning, for example, the efficiency and effectiveness of a payroll function for a division or for the whole company. Okay? No? Of course, it has the advantage of permitting specialization to auditors. No, certain auditors with an internal audit, what do you call this, with an internal audit staff, no, can develop considerable expertise in that area, such as auditing in, let's say, for example, payroll, or it's possible that the production engineering portion or function of the company, no, it can be technical, but if you are doing it most of your time, no, in the corporate world, most likely you be gaining certain expertise over that. Okay, they can be more efficient and effective by actually um, by having that kind of expertise. Okay, the disadvantage only of functional audit is that failure to evaluate interrelated functions. For example, the production engineering function interacts with manufacturing and other functions in an organization. Okay, so that's the only limitation of the or disadvantage of the functional audit. Okay, we cannot evaluate the interrelated function. Okay, whereas with the organizational audit, an operational audit of an organization deals with the entire organizational unit, such as a department, branch, or subsidiary. An organizational audit emphasizes how efficiently and effectively functions interact. So, ito yung parang no-cover na limitation ni functional audit. With organizational audit, it covers a wider span or a wider department or branch or subsidiary. Okay, it's possible that we are checking the expenses of cost centers, no? Possible HR, accounting, engineering, and we are checking if the salaries are somehow what you call this, are really helping the company in achieving its objectives, especially if we want to have a high profit, right? So that is an organizational audit. Functional audit only considers a certain area. Organizational audit, we consider a wider scope in terms of who will be audited. Okay. Well, the plan of organization and the methods to coordinate activities, since we are involving a lot of department or functions, are critical or important in this type of audit. Okay? Now, we have the last one, the special assignment. In here, in operational auditing, no, special assignments arise at the request of the management for a wide variety of audit, such as determining the cost of an ineffective IT system, investigating the possibility of a fraud in a division, and making recommendations for reducing the cost of a manufactured product. In other words, the auditee or the management can request for a special audit or review, no, at their request. But please do remember that if we are engaging ourselves in special assignment, remember that we should not assume any management responsibility. We can, of course, provide special assignment like providing recommendations, okay, investigating certain areas, okay, and other audit functions, no, or in other words, we can provide consulting activities to them or engage consulting engagement. Okay, please make sure only that we do not in any way assume again management responsibility. Okay, we cannot, like, as auditors, implement the process or craft the policy and procedures. What we can do again, it's only recommendation, help, assist, facilitate. Okay. The next, who performs operations audit? So in here, the operations audit can be performed by three groups. So we have the first one, the internal auditors. Internal auditors are in such a unique position to perform operational audit that some people use the terms internal auditing and operational auditing interchangeably. Okay, as mentioned earlier. It is, however, inappropriate to include all the operational auditing is done by the internal auditors, or that the internal auditor do only operational auditing. Okay? Because operational auditing can also be performed by other group. Okay? Many internal audit departments do both operational and financial auditing, often simultaneously. No, pwede magkasabay. Okay? Because they spend all their time working for the company they are auditing, internal auditors have an advantage in doing operational audits given their skills, knowledge, and of course the experience. Okay, they can develop considerable knowledge about the company and its business, which is actually very essential in the operational or operations auditing. To maximize the effectiveness for both the financial and operational audits, the internal audit department should report to the board of directors or president. Okay? Internal auditors should also have access and ongoing communication with the audit committee, okay, of the board of directors. So as mentioned in the organizational structure, there should be administrative reporting to the management and functional reporting to the board of directors or the audit committee. Okay, this organizational structure helps an internal auditor remain the what we call organizational independence. Okay, if the internal auditors report to the controller, it is difficult for them to do independent valuations and make recommendations to senior management about inefficiencies in the controller's operations, because the user of the report, they are also the what do you call this, the department of concern in relation to performing that operational or financial audit. Okay, you should not report your finding, no, basically to only the auditee. You should report to the proper authority, in this case the management and the audit committee. Okay. So next one, who can also perform the government auditors. In the Philippines, it's your what do you call this, commission and audit auditors. Okay. So state government auditors perform also operational auditing, often as a part of doing financial audits. So they perform actually the financial audit, but they also do operational audit together with that engagement. No, government standards are set for performance audits, which are essentially the same as operational audit also. Performance audit include the following, no? First is what we call the economy and efficiency audit. When you say economy and efficiency audit, the purpose of an economy and efficiency audit is to determine whether first the entity is acquiring, no, protecting and using its resources economically and efficiently. As much as possible, when we are using the funds of the country, no, coming from the taxpayers, we should use it very well, not really frugal, but in a way, efficiently and economically. So that is in terms of we are we are purchasing materials at a low cost but still at good quality. Okay? And also this audit can determine the causes of inefficiency or uneconomical practices. So if we have some findings, what could be the causes of these inefficiencies and uneconomical practices? It also determine whether the entity has complied with the laws and regulations concerning matters of economy and efficiency. So we are talking more of cost, but also the quality, and also the quality rather. Okay. We also have, aside from the economy and efficiency audit, the government auditors perform also program audits. The purpose of the program audit is to determine, number one, the extent to which the desired results or benefit established by the legislature or other authorizing body are being achieved. So we have set the desired results or the objectives, no, with regard to that activity, uh, na-achieve ba? Okay, so you see the expenses, you see if the milestones or the key performance indicators are achieved. Okay, so you see if the set objectives are met or achieved by this audit, by the program, and we do this through the program audit. Okay, we also determine the effectiveness of the organization, programs, activities, or functions, and whether the entity has complied also with the laws and regulations applicable to the program that we set. Okay, so we also do program audit. Let's say for example the programs set by the let's say for example by the local by the local government agency. Let's say for example they have scholarship programs. um, Once that the program already is finished with their undertaking, is the purpose of the program achieved, or does the programs or are the programs achieved at the end of the program? So you need to check the activities, the expenses, no, if it's within the budget. If that is the case, then you can also um, issue an opinion with regard to the program. Okay. Next we um, next we have who also performs the operations audit, the CPA firms or the external auditors. In here, when a CPA firm does an audit of historical financial statements, part of an audit often consists of identifying operational problems and making recommendations that may benefit the audit client. The recommendation can be made orally, but they are typically included in a management letter. Or remember, that's the list of finding, the management letter. Okay. Also, in other words, in the course of their audit, in doing audit of the financial statement, when they have some adjustments, of course, that has or that may that adjustment can be referred to an what do you call this, a deficiency in the control. If that is the case, then there is a problem in the operations. You may include it in the management letter that you can recommend for the management to improve its process so as not to have the same kind of adjustment that would possibly occur in the next period. Okay. So the next would be the we need to talk about the value that the auditor provide. Okay. So for actually auditors are very very important nowadays in terms of really improving the operations of the organization. Okay. So in here, recognition of the duties that all employees have to the principal is central to the proper discharge of their responsibilities as employees, who should always act in the interest of the main stakeholders of the organization. To this effect, internal auditors contribute to this process by making sure that these duties are defined, that the structures are set to ensure behaviors are aligned with these objectives, and making recommendations to the board and senior management when there are discrepancy jeopardizing the success of this arrangement. In the aggregate, internal auditors serve the public and the common interest by making sure that the owners receive the return on their investment that they are entitled to, and that the means of generating these profits are within the confines of the law. No, it's possible that we are earning profit, but it is illegal. Then we are not a good internal audit. We are not good internal auditors in that case. We are possibly accessory to the crime if that kind of activity is really unlawful. Okay? Beyond shareholders, however, internal auditors help the process of making sure that the interests of all relevant stakeholders are met. Okay? So, conducting a stakeholder analysis is an important aspect of modern internal auditing because it gives the auditor an appreciation for the various parties interested in the outputs and outcomes of the organization. Okay? Its programs and related processes. Organizations are increasingly finding themselves actually in the controversies because they did not anticipate or properly manage the expectation of these diverse constituencies. Okay, so if you know the expectations of the shareholders, most likely by the organization and by the internal auditing activity or the auditors, most likely you know what should be included in the audit procedures, what should be the expected audit findings by the stakeholders. Okay, to the extent that internal auditors can help management identify, plan for, and respond effectively to the primary and secondary stakeholders, the organization will encounter less pushback and it will likely be able to operate with fewer disruptions. Okay, so kung proactive ang management and through the help of the internal auditors, of course, we can plan anything, risk, no, any risk. Of course, there are some risks that are really minsan surprising, di ba? Pero at least if you are proactive, we know what to do in case a risk happen, no? Mga tipong ganon. In addition, during the planning phase of any audit, planners should identify the internal and external stakeholders involved to make sure they seek their input as to what their objectives, concerns, and plans are for the area audited. Of course, we need to get also the input of the stakeholders. What should be look upon during the course of the audit. Okay? Baka kasi mamaya tapos na yung audit, no? And we didn't consider the concern or the request of the internal external stakeholder. We don't want to do the audit again. As much as possible, we shall consider. Okay? This actually, if we are doing it, no, this will result in a more effective and value-added reviews. So next we go to the benefits of organizational audits. So as we all know, audits are objective because these are being conducted by an internal or external auditor in the context of assurance principle and operations audit. Okay? Why? Because they supply a fresh perspective, meaning new knowledge, or it might be new information coming from current practices about what is good and not so good about organizational practices and processes. Okay? So the final audit report should make the management aware of problems that they may not have. Okay? Of course, executives can also use the organizational audit results to motivate team members and emphasize existing or new goals if there are any new goals for the moment. Okay? Also, with subsequent actions, no, after getting the audit finding, it will lead the company in order to have a great profitability, legal, compliance, and employee satisfaction in the long term. Okay, in here we identify four entities wherein operational audit programs are valuable. Okay, so for the first one, it is the organization. The organization can achieve its aim by applying disciplined, systematic methods to assess and advance the effectiveness of control, risk management, and the governance processes. Okay? Now, with the individual, they can continuously improve their ability to apply knowledge and skills to deliver the intended results. Okay, so if there are any recommendation or action to be implemented, they can actually use what they've learned and what they've learned from their past experience, and of course with the training, in order to achieve the intended results, meaning the supposedly recommendation approved by the management for implementation. Okay, the next one would be the end user or the consumer. Okay, they receive more cost efficient and high quality products of or services. Okay, as to the world itself, okay, it benefits from a better, more sustainable future. Okay, of course, if we are improving the existing controls, okay, or processes, it will be more sustainable, of course, in the future. Merely by small steps, if I remember, even small steps, no, if we aggregate all these small steps, it will give. We are going near our goal, even though it is far, but in time we can actually achieve our goals. Okay, so if the organization are improving their process, most likely their collaboration of efforts in improving the businesses will have a good effect, of course, to the world. Okay. So organization can expect to achieve five primary goals, okay, or maintain advantage by performing any operational audits. Okay, so in here we have five primary goals. So for the first one, influence positive change. In here, we need to understand how future processes, policy, and procedures and other types of management are producing maximum effectiveness and efficiency. Okay, for the second one, review of internal controls. In here, we establish the potential impact of successes and failure in the specialized functional areas of operations. Okay, so for the third primary goal, understand risk. The type of risk associated with business and operational risk range from business interruption, employee omission or errors, IT system failure, product failure, safety and healthy issues, loss of key employees, fraud, loss of suppliers, and litigation, to name a few. Okay, and then for the fourth primary goal is the identify improvement opportunities. As a result of understanding the risk, the auditors can determine where to make improvements and how to mitigate risk and improve opportunities. Okay, the broad categories of risk and where improvements should occur are operational risk, financial risk, environmental risk, and reputational risk. And for the last primary goal, we have to inform the senior management. Okay? The results of the audit should appear in a clear report that provides objective analysis, appraisals, recommendation, and pertinent comments concerning the activities reviewed. Okay? So, if we perform this organizational audits, we can achieve these five primary goals. Okay? Now, for tawag dito, well, one of the benefits also of having or doing organizational audits, it helps to reposition the internal audit function or the internal audit activity. Okay? So, if in case the internal audit function is new to the company, through the performance of organizational audits, the management and the board of directors will see the essence of the work of the internal audit. And they should have, again, an organizational independence, meaning they should be administratively reporting to the management and functionally reporting to the audit committee or the board. Okay, so that's our ideal goal of the position of the IAA in the organization. Okay, When we examine the changing role of internal audit as it relates to people, processes, and technologies, it becomes apparent that we are entering a new era. Okay? This new phase in our history is characterized by change, increased expectations and demands, ever-changing risk, and an overwhelming amount of data and competitive pressures that can collectively or in isolation cripple an organization very rapidly. Internal auditors are tasked with assessing and making appropriate recommendations for improving the governance process in the organizations. Okay? Evaluating the effectiveness and contributing to the improvement of risk management processes, governance, and control systems. And also, they assist their organization in maintaining effective controls. To do this, auditors needs independence, objectivity, clarity of mind, and effective tools. They must be guided by the goal of promoting continuous improvement throughout the organization, and to accomplish this, they must constantly perform gap analysis. When I say gap analysis, um, as I've mentioned earlier, if there is a discrepancy between what is currently being done versus in the documented procedure, then there is a gap. We need to perform gap analysis, identifying what is the cause of this gap, and this should be there should be a recommendation in order to close this gap. So we need to revise the printed document, or otherwise we should try to eliminate this discrepancy if it will not really help in the achievement of our goals or objectives. Okay? They must energize and encourage their organizations to mobilize through the practice of change management principles. Also, adding value and being perceived as trusted advisors to their organization are perhaps the highest aspirations of internal auditors around the world. Okay? Operational auditing is a key contributor to achieving that goal, actually. Okay? This can be achieved by first helping their organization establish the right strategic direction to achieve their mission. Second, identifying opportunities to work faster, cheaper, and better. Third will be anticipating positive and negative events that can enable or hinder future success. And lastly, encouraging stakeholders within and outside the organization to act ethically. Okay? So, if we are in this kind of mindset, then probably we are achieving our goals. Okay? The operational improvements will translate into stronger financial results, and by achieving its goal over the long term, the organization will safeguard its sustainability. Okay? The next is actually operations audit are continuous improvement tools. Coming from the definition of internal auditing, remember that we are improving the operations of the company or of the organization. That comes from the mindset of continuous improvement. Okay? To meet the challenges of a rapidly changing marketplace and regulatory environment, companies must continually reinvent the way they do their business. Okay? Organizations should conduct audits regularly to support continuous improvement and to check the progress of quality measures recommended in previous audits. Okay? So, we should not, of course, if there is a finding and then there is a recommendation, the management should really implement what has been recommended. Okay? Meaning the recommendation that they have approved for implementation. Okay? If there is no monitoring or and follow-up mechanism over that action plan in order to address certain issue, then there is no sense in doing operations audit. No? Of course, the internal audit function will have this monitoring and follow-up function in order for the management to implement what they committed to do in addressing the issue or set of issues. Okay? Actually, the internal audit, they are not really immune to the pressures that organization can experience. So auditors need to find innovative means to help their company succeed. Many companies or specific departments such as IT focus on incremental improvement. So meaning even small improvements, okay, or step-by-step improvement to improve the processes, product, and services, or all of the three. Okay, it will really depend also with the size of the organization. Of course, with small organization, they can easily implement improvement. For larger organizations, no, they it's more bureaucratic there. So the implementation of improvement will actually take more time before it can be what do you call this, before you can feel the effect of the improvement. Okay. Okay, next we have the challenges of operations audit. So in here we have identified four challenges. So for the first one, as mentioned earlier, we have here the change management. In here, change management needs to be well handled. Okay, the results of the audit will likely lead to multiple changes, and team members and managers may have difficulty adjusting to different expectations, processes, personnel, or budget. So there's a resistance. Okay, change can also affect teamwork, but those issues can be mitigated. Okay, a helpful tool to help manage change is through the use of what we call the RACI, or the RACI, meaning it is acronym as responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. So who are the persons should be what? Responsible, accountable, consulted, or informed. So this principle helps to achieve change that may result from an operations audit. So in here, you know who um, who should be held responsible for that certain task, who should be held accountable if in case a process will fail, okay, and who should only be consulted or informed. Okay. Okay. So next one is the operational auditing expenses. There are costs also involved in doing audit. Okay. If the auditor is a consultant, of course there will be fees for the engagement. Okay. There's also the cost of having projects or production. Of course, aside from cost, um, the audit, the operations audit also eat much of the time. Okay. When managers and employees are engaged with the audit, they will be pulled away from their usual activities. For complex organizations, an operational audit can be relatively time consuming because each step of the process must be analyzed. Okay? Business owners should also be aware that operational audit can turn up unexpected problems that take time to repair. Okay? This might involve a complete overhaul of the existing systems, requiring new training for the employees. In the long run, these disruptions can be worth the trouble should the operational audit lead to a more efficient method of doing business. The second to the last. Okay. So we have here the auditor evaluation. Considering the major responsibility of the auditing position, whether the auditor or the auditors are operating internally, externally, no. One author mentioned that the competence of the auditor or the auditor should be determined based on explicit evaluation criteria. Okay, so this evaluation checklist should help assist in the selection of the best candidate for the said engagement. Okay, and lastly, the last challenge of operations audit is the demand for internal auditing experts, wherein it is increasing. Okay, as proof that the number of operational audits is increasing, the need for internal auditing expert is on the rise. Robert Half International said that they have found that the demand for internal auditors in the US is going strong, and that the need for internal auditors is growing faster than the average for all occupations through 2024. Okay, so you see here the different challenges of operations audit. Okay, so now we go to the internal audit activity or the internal audit function. Okay, So in here, the staff of the internal audit function, or IAA, okay, reports to their uh, lead, who is called the chief audit executive, who reports to the audit committee or the board directly. The CAE have the full and free access to the audit committee or the board. If in a case we have meet the organizational independence of the IAA. Okay? So CAE for administrative purposes may report to the CEO, but for functional purposes shall always report to the audit committee or the board directly. In here, the internal audit is fully authorized, no? And they have here the following um, different authority over some of these bulleted items. So for the first one, have complete and unrestricted access to records, personnel, and physical properties relevant to the performance of engagement. Of course, how can they do the audit if they don't have a complete and unrestricted access to these items? So in short, the internal auditor should have full access, full and complete access over these relevant elements. Okay. The second one is to the internal audit is to delegate duties, allocate resources, select team, determine scope of work, and select required techniques to accomplish objectives. Okay. And the third one is to obtain necessary assistance of personnel in audited units and other specialized services within or outside the organization. Okay? However, if we have some authority to do certain tasks, okay, we also have some uh, uh, tasks that are prohibited for the internal auditors to do. Okay, so for the first one is to perform any operational duties for the company. In short, they should not assume any management responsibility or perform operational work of the organization. Second is to initiate or approve accounting transactions external to the internal audit office or the function. Okay, so they should not be the initiator or the approver of certain transactions. Okay. Third, they are not authorized to direct the activities. Okay, sorry for that. Of any department's employees not employed by the internal audit office, except those who have assigned to assist the audit team. So meaning, these internal auditors, they should not what do you call this, uh, provide instructions or any assign duty to any of the employees within the organization outside the IAA. Okay? Unless it is a consulting engagement, okay, wherein there is a need to assist the audit team in terms of, for example, understanding the technicalities of a certain area within the production. Okay, so that can that can happen actually. Okay. Okay. Also here, the CAE and the staff of the internal audit function, no, in the discharge of their duties, have the responsibility to first develop an annual audit plan based on comprehensive risk assessment, including risk identified by the management. So remember that we are using risk-based internal audit model. So we should plan our audit programs or audit reviews, okay, in accordance with the um, available risk assessment used by the organization. Okay. Next is to submit the annual audit plan to the audit committee or the board for approval. So this is a common task already to the internal audit. No, after preparing the internal audit, they should submit it to the appropriate authority, which is the audit committee or the board approval for their sign off if ever they are okay with the contents of the audit plan. The third is to implement the annual audit plan as approved, including special requests by the management. So the special request by the management can be consulting engagement. Okay? So for the fourth one, issue periodic reports to the audit committee summarizing the results of the audit. Of course, after they perform the audit, these results should be reported to the audit committee. Okay? In a very brief manner, or not really very detailed info, but rather what are the summary of the audit findings. Okay? Then fifth, coordinate with and provide oversight of other controls and monitoring functions related to risk management, compliance, uh, security, ethics, and environmental issues. Okay, it's possible that that there are two current reviews over a certain area. They can have a collaboration wherein they will have their own scope or area of responsibility, no, area of audit work, no. Of course, they need to have a coordination or collaboration as to who will do this certain audit procedure, okay, something like that, okay. So next, after discussing the internal audit activity, we are now to discuss the skills and qualities required for effective operational audit. So in here, the paradigm shift in the work of internal auditing from being controls-based to risk-based means that the internal auditors must acquire and apply different skills to their trade from what they did in the past. Okay? Auditors must examine risk exposures and the measures in place to address more than accounting and financial risk. So what skills are helpful? According to the IIA Research Foundation Core Competencies Report, the top general competencies of internal controls are: number one, communication skills such as oral, written, report writing, and presentation skills. Remember, we are presenting our findings to the board of directors. Definitely, we should have a good communication skills in order to present our findings very well to them. Of course, we should also uh, be very well aware about our finding through communicating to them the pertinent and important issues of the audit work performed by the internal auditors. Okay. Next is they should also have problem identification and solution skills such as conceptual and analytical thinking. I guess with our profession, you being the future accountants and auditors, we should be very versed on how to identify problems and how would we provide solution to that kind of problem. We are not just merely presenting findings. We should also be very knowledgeable on how to, or rather how should also have this kind of professional judgment in providing a solution to the issues that we noted. Okay, so the third one, ability to promote the value of internal audit. Okay, through continuous promotion of the value of internal audit to the stakeholders such as the management and the board of directors, they will see the importance or the value of the work of internal audit function. Okay, fourth is the knowledge of industry, regulatory, and standard changes. Of course, as internal auditors, uh, remember that we should be aware of the nature of the business of the organization. Of course, if you don't have any knowledge about let's say for example, the industry where the organization belongs to, how can we provide good insight of course to our by providing good insight to our stakeholders about what is the current situation of the organization within the industry. Now, let's say for example, in terms of financial ratios, so how is organization doing well as compared to its peers. Okay. Also, internal auditors should have organizational skills, or organization skills. So through formal education that you are currently having right now, no, you know already organization skills. No? You should know how to plan. Okay. Of course, execute the plan and wrap up the plan. So that's what we mean by organization skills in the context of operations audit. Six is to have a conflict resolution or negotiation skills. Of course, if you want to convince our board of directors, we want to negotiate our findings to them. That this really is a finding that should be given solution immediately. Okay. And if there's a conflict also in terms of between you and the audit client in terms of a finding, you should know on how to address this well and negotiate this in order for the audit findings to be convincing that it is, of course, a finding that should be given a good solution. Okay. So next we have here, they should also have staff training and development. Just like with competency, no, as internal auditors or external auditors, we should be updated with the current trends and development in the profession, and also with the industry where the organization they belong to. Okay. We also have here accounting frameworks, tools, and techniques. Of course, through the advent of information and technology, okay, there is a big improvement in terms of collecting the data, summarizing the data, presenting the financial information to the stakeholders. Okay, unlike before, no, when we present financial statement, no, it will usually take long time before that this journal entries can be translated into the financial statement for use of the external users. Okay, so the current trend, we are using what? Accounting information system. Once you key in the transaction, it will automatically be reflected in the financial statement. Okay, the next, the internal auditor should have change management skills. So meaning, they are the what you call it, the catalyst for change. Okay, so if we want to improve the operations, we should have that kind of change management skills, wherein we should be convincing the persons involved in the implementation of that plan or change plan. Okay. Then, of course, internal auditors should be aware of the IT or CT framework, tools, and techniques. Information technology framework, tools, and techniques. Okay. Then lastly, or they should have cultural fluency and foreign language skills through business globalization. No, nowadays language barrier should not exist. Of course, we some of the products that we are using now or we order from Lazada, majority of them are manufactured outside the Philippines. Okay, and in order to have a sustainable business, okay, in now a very competitive business environment, uh, most likely we are going to deal with some of the foreign investors or possible uh, trade trading partners. Let's say, for example, supplier, or of course with our customers offshore. Okay, so there should be a good knowledge about um, some of the cultural background of the organizations that are located outside the Philippines. Okay. Of course, the universal language is English. Okay. If you have that kind of good in what do you call this English proficiency and in terms of communication skills, then you'll be having no problem in dealing with foreigners. Okay, it's a good if you know their language. Of course, we are not really required to to really know their language, but if you have a good background about their language, then it's an advantage for you. Okay. Okay. Also, there are three common core competencies identified in the report, which are communication skills, okay, problem identification and solution skills, and keeping up to date with industry and regulatory changes and professional standards. These results highlight the importance of individual and team competencies and the role they play in team effectiveness. Okay. Okay, now we go to the in terms of behavioral skills. Internal auditors should possess the following skills. So first is confidentiality. So we all know that the information that they would get from the course of audit, information there, particularly if this information are classified as confidential or highly private information, they should not disclose the information. Okay. Second would be objectivity. Okay. It means it should be free from bias. Okay. Number three, communication. Just like with communication skills, we need to have a good communication to our stakeholders. So fourth, judgment. Of course, if we are faced in a dilemma wherein there are two opposing standards with that we can refer to our issue, then they will use their professional judgment. They should have a good sound judgment. Okay. Then next we have work well with all the management levels, meaning they should have interpersonal skills. They can work well with the operations management, middle management, and most importantly with executive management. Even with those who are at the operational staff, okay, they should have a good relationship, even though they are the lowest in the management level. Okay. Next is possess governance and ethics sensitivity. Okay. When we say possess governance and ethics sensitivity, we are all aware about some of the ethics or the values or the principles being given importance by the organization. At the same time, they know the proper protocol in reporting the findings, in knowing what should be the proper protocol in case of cascading information. Okay. Then next we have B team players. This is true especially if we are working in a team. Let's say for example the audit team. Okay. They should be participating well, coordinating their activities with their co-workers within the team. Okay. Then next we have relationship building, meaning of course if we need to work well with the management levels, we need to build good relationship with them. No? It doesn't mean that if we are building a relationship with them, our principle of independence and objectivity will be impaired. We are just building a good report to our auditee for them or for us to have what do you call this, an easy access to any of the records, any of their people with regard to the course or during the course of our audit. Okay. Next, we can all the internal auditors should work independently. Okay. Aside from collaboration, of course, if a certain people or an audit staff is given this task, they should work independently. Okay. Meaning they can be supervised at the minimum, or they will be supervised at minimum. Okay. Next, of course, team building. Okay. Just like with number 7. And then we have also here leadership. So for those who are leading a team, a leader should possess good leadership skills. Okay. They know how to handle conflict, resolve issues. Okay. And then also influence. Of course, if the internal auditor wants his or her finding to be given importance or to be uh, you know given emphasis or matter, he or she should have an influence over that convince or I mean he or she should have a convincing skills in order to really convince the audit finding. Okay, I mean the finding is really a finding. Okay, next we also have here facilitation. Okay, when we say facilitation, if we are engaged by our I mean by the request of the management to facilitate some training, okay, we should be very helpful with facilitation. I mean, very helpful in really undertaking some request by the management as long as there's no assumption of management responsibility. Next is staff management. Just like with leadership, when we say staff management, the leader of the group should know how to delegate the task, okay, and to do proper follow-up and monitoring as to the progress of the audit work by his or her staff or the under his or her span of control. Okay. Then number 15, change catalyst skills. So meaning since we should have a good, as mentioned earlier, no, we should have that kind of what we call change management skill. So we should be catalyst of that change. We should be the initiator of that change to the relevant people over that finding. So we should convince them really to that the finding would really improve the operations rather than really uh, I mean of course for them it's parang they see it as a threat to them or ang bakang gusto nila I mean ang bakang isipin nila pinapahirapan lang sila, but that is not the case. Through proper explanation, no, and collaboration with the people involved in the change or the improvement is possible. Okay. So, how to acquire these skills should be done along two dimensions. One at the individual level and the other at the internal audit unit level or the internal audit activity or function level. Now, at the individual level, internal auditors, like most professionals today, are expected to take ownership of their training and development and not leave it to their employers to decide and implement. Whereas in the past, it was common for employees to take a passive approach, waiting for the employers or the employers to tell them when, what, and why training would occur. Today's auditors should take a more active and engaged approach to their training needs, or in other words, more proactive. Okay, so they should number one, reflect on their present competencies, identify their job needs, and perform a gap analysis to meet their current skill requirements. Okay, so there should be a training analysis. What are the current competencies, then the job needs, then any competencies that do not I mean it's not enough to address some job needs, then there is a gap. So through attending of that missing link between the present competencies and job needs, that's where training continuing professional development or training would come in. Okay, second, define their career ambitions and chart a roadmap to acquire the skills and competencies needed in the future. When we say career ambition, so what, for example, what is their, for 10 years from now or 15 years from now, how do you see yourself? Would you be a CAE? If that is the case, so you should lay down all the plans that or the trainings that you will need to go under for you to be a CAE in the future. Okay? Internal auditors should balance their training activities so they not only enhance their technical skills but also their soft skills. So as I've mentioned, aside from technical skills, meaning knowing the do's and don'ts, the standards, of course, with some of the behavior interpersonal skills, that's a must for now for the internal auditors to carry out their duties as auditors. Okay, in fact, they can be more important as anyone who has worked with a technically exceptional individual who can't explain what he is doing, did, or what plans to do and why. Okay, so meaning, even though the person may be very be technically exceptional, no, if in case he cannot really explain what he's meaning, what he's really wanting to say, that person cannot articulate his or her ideas to the important stakeholders. Okay, communication skills are important, no, or essential, not only as it relates to fellow auditors but also process owners and operators. All too often, internal auditors are unable to explain their activities, the reason for testing certain items, or the implications of their findings to non-auditors. This inability to explain matters clearly diminishes the impact of their findings and the persuasiveness of their recommendations. So truly, communication skills is very very important. Okay, for them to really articulate well what they want to 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 express to their stakeholders. Of course, if you want to convince that your recommendation is a good plan in order to address that certain issue, then you should really have a good communication skill to make your recommendation more persuasive. Okay. At the internal audit level, the department should perform skills analysis to identify their present skill repertoire. Okay, and those needed to perform audit and other reviews competently in the next 3 to 7 years. Organizations are increasingly performing multi-year risk plans to make sure their work is synchronized with the organization's strategic initiatives. So meaning to say the alignment of the risk plans, no, to the organization's strategic initiatives. This is a great opportunity to expand the identification of future work, but also determine how prepared the department is to meet those challenges. Okay, so really, communication is the key, and organizational skills are also the key for the department or the internal audit function to really work well. Okay. So the next one, we'll be talking about auditors as trusted advisors. Becoming a advisor to the board and the management has long been presented as a strategic goal of internal auditors. This designation implies that the internal auditor is no longer seen merely as the corporate cop who moves around the organization searching for instances of non-compliance. So, gone are the days that the internal auditors are fault finder. Okay, so yun yung iniiwasan natin, maging fault finder. Rather, they should be seen or treated as trusted advisors. Okay? Actually, may time, naabot ako na yung really the internal auditors are regarded as consultants for some areas of accounting, risk, auditing. Okay? As internal auditors, that go beyond compliance and accounting focus work, they can become trusted advisors when they do the following. No, first, perform risk-based audit that probe topics important to the achievement of business objectives. Second, effectively identify the root cause of operational issues and use facts and figures to support statement. Okay, so again, we should be able to identify very well the root cause, and of course, if we are using supporting evidence to our findings or facts that we've mentioned, probably that will build a good a good reputation to our to our clients, of course. And if that is the case, they will they will really trust us and ask us about some advice on certain issues or areas for improvement of their department, something like that. Okay. Also, they do also the following, no, leverage their deep knowledge and experience in diverse business areas. Okay. Then also practice participative auditing techniques that result in collaboration with audit clients during the planning, fieldwork, and report preparation phases of the engagement. When I say participative auditing, we want to have a good collaboration with our audit client in order for us to achieve our audit objectives in the performance of our audit work. Okay. Next, eloquently present the benefits of recommendation in terms of improving the control environment, but more importantly, how they reduce risk exposures and support efforts to achieve business objectives. Also, share knowledge, insight, case studies, updates, and other facts that demonstrate their personal investment in the well-being of the organization even when an audit is not underway. Okay, so we are in this case we are very insightful, helpful to our audit clients in terms of providing areas for improvement, no? Because we are trusted advisors. Also acting with a sense of urgency and always conducting themselves professionally, no? Of course, we can provide some advisory services, but at the same time, we should also be, doing things or providing service in a professional way. We don't want our clients to have not really very very close relation, but rather there is still a line in between that we are also auditors at the same time, but we can also be friend to them. I mean, not really friend to them, rather be a good advisor to them in cases of uh, consultancy engagements. Okay, becoming a trust advisor is not something that happens by accident. It is not something that is gained automatically after a long stature in the organization. Becoming a trusted advisor is the result of consistently delivering what the client values, being right about issues, making useful and pragmatic recommendations or practical recommendations, and being fair in the evaluation of business process while acknowledging the context in which issues confront the organization. This does not mean that the auditor loses independence or objectivity, okay? But rather that they are fair, competent, and credible. That's what I'm trying to say. That it doesn't mean that the auditor loses the independence or objectivity. There's still a line that we, aside from being an advisor, we are still auditors, okay? And in the future, we might be auditing them, okay? Eventually, the client trusts the auditor to practice sound auditing techniques based on effective research and grounded in facts. Okay? The client comes to trust the auditor to tell the truth and rely on the veracity of communications shared with them. It can be described as, if the auditor said, it must be true. So, yun yung gusto nating mangyari. Okay? They trust the words that comes out from our mouth in terms of giving advice. Okay, at the highest level, the relationship becomes one of the partnership not only related to ongoing operations but one where the client asks for advice before making important decisions. Okay, this transforms the relationship from one of detection and correction of issues into one of deterrence, prevention, and preemptive actions to anticipate risky situations. When this happens, the auditor being sought, not avoided, can be described as one where the auditor is the client's trusted advisor. Okay? Okay. For the last slide, we'll be talking about in here applying consulting skills effectively during operational audit. So, in the course of audit, no, aside from providing consultation audit, no, I mean we are focusing on operational audit, we can still apply the consulting skills effectively. Okay? As the internal auditor's role and practices evolve, the value of what they provide increases as well. Initially, the auditor provides information, facts, and figures related to the results of their review. Over time, the auditor becomes more adept at providing solutions to the problems identified. In other words, the auditor does not merely provide a list of problems, but those issues are accompanied by useful and pragmatic recommendations. So remember, we, aside from auditors giving audit findings, we are also giving recommendations on how to improve more the controls in order for the issue not happening in the future. Okay, management, as owners of the programs and processes within the organization, is responsible for the implementation of recommendation. This is very true. Even though we recommended it, no, as auditors, we are not responsible for its implementation. I well, the client appreciate the efforts made to discuss some corrective actions, how it can be implemented, and who is best suited to perform the enhanced or additional activities. The final decision rests with the management, and quite often they know what needs to be done, who will do it, and when. Okay, so that's why we are not responsible for the implementation of the recommendation. But to the extent that the auditor can share insights and remind management about the implication in terms of segregation of duties, access controls, performance metrics for monitoring, and workflow leveling, this can help make the implementation more successful, sustainable, and with fewer unintended consequences. Okay, so actually we can provide some recommendation as to the nitty-gritty detail, no? As to, of course, providing them insight about the risk involved. I mean, if also there is a additional activity, of course, we there should be ARC, no, a what we call authorization, recording, and custody, the segregation of duties, no, as to avoid the what you call this conflict of conflicting roles. Okay. The facilitation of learning helps to build institutional knowledge and the capacity to make better decisions in the future. It is a form of coaching that can enhance leadership and managerial know-how. Collectively, it results in an improvement in organizational effectiveness. As I've mentioned, in one of the behavioral skills that that should be present, no, uh, in the auditor's skills, they should know how to facilitate well. Meaning, they should know how to coordinate with certain people, no? Particularly in a way, if you want to build some process or improve some process that needs a group of people, okay, then we are in a position wherein we are good facilitators in order to work towards achieving the goals of the organization. Okay, so that's all for operations auditing concepts. So thank you, class. See you next session.